on WeatherScope. More storm damage in the south, and now the potential for severe weather stretches from Florida to New England. And in a special report, look at what happens when floodwaters strike with little or no warning. We'll continue our series of reports on the raging waters. Those stories plus in-depth forecast and analysis in today's edition of WeatherScope.
Very strong winds, hurricane force in some areas, and they are pounding the Pacific Northwest. Good evening, I'm Janetta Jones.
And I'm Jeff Marr. We'll have more about the West in a couple of minutes. Janetta will take a look at that storm. But first, more severe weather in the east again tonight. Let's take a look at what happened last night. Strong thunderstorms and reported tornadoes, nothing confirmed yet, swept through central Mississippi last night. At least 2 people were injured when the storms damaged a mobile home in Copiah County, south of Jackson. About 4,000 people went without power. Rain showers spread across the deep south today. It was a wet morning in the Big Easy, but the skies began to clear late this afternoon. Crescent City can expect a much nicer day tomorrow with blue skies and mild temperatures and really not much of a problem with humidity. All right, well, severe weather. This would be the 6th night in a row, believe it or not, going all the way back to last Thursday night that we've had severe weather somewhere in the Midwest or in the East. Different storm systems, but it has been one heck of a run with the severe weather. Hopefully tonight it won't be that bad, but it's this frontal boundary on the East Coast which is the focusing mechanism for a lot of the showers and storms. Really, up to this point, not too much had gone on, although here in western PA today, out toward the Johnstown and Altoona areas, and just southeast of Pittsburgh, there was some wind damage, a lot of trees and power lines down, some roofs blown off, things like that. And we may see more of that in parts of upstate New York, eastern PA, and even on down into parts of Virginia. This whole region under a couple of severe thunderstorm watches, and that does include the New York City metropolitan area, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington, just to name a few of the big cities that are in this watch area. The watch actually extends, or a piece of it, all the way up into parts of Vermont and New Hampshire. Look at the big storms now starting to fire up here in eastern PA. Albany getting hit again tonight. This is the 2nd night in a row that you've had some pretty big thunderstorms. And look how the line is starting to congeal here and move through the Philadelphia area. We've had some wind gusts in Chester County being reported upwards of 60 miles an hour here. That's moving right into western Philly as we speak. So watch out for these gusty winds, hail, and torrential downpours for a brief period of time as the storms move by, and we could lose some power in these areas. Also up toward Wilkesboro, Scranton, and right on up, looks like from northern New Jersey, right on up toward the Poughkeepsie area, or just west of Poughkeepsie. Looks like another big band moving into western Massachusetts. So a nasty night in some of the major cities in the Northeast. It looks like some isolated but locally heavy storms all the way down through the Carolinas and into southern Georgia. So we might have some hail and some brief gusty winds with those storms down through Valdosta, Tallahassee.
Showers and thunderstorms extending from the Gulf Coast all the way up to the Northeast. Some of the worst of it now in Virginia and in Pennsylvania. We'll focus in on that coming up. In the Northeast we go first. We're moving through Vermont and New Hampshire, some rain and thunder showers approaching Concord and Burlington, back to the south through Albany and Elmira. Then we head into Pennsylvania, and we have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Monroe County. Look out for wind and plenty of rainfall with this, as well as the thunder and lightning. Back to the south we go into Richmond, where wind damage has been reported with a thunderstorm that moved through that area, and we do have severe thunderstorm warnings in effect in that same vicinity. And then you can see through Philadelphia getting the activity up towards Scranton.
these medicines were approved without a prescription for heartburn, but only one was approved in a full prescription strength. It wasn't Pepsid AC or Zantac 75. Tagamet HB is the only one in a full prescription strength, a strength doctors have prescribed to safely treat heartburn for over 15 years, and nothing stops stomach acid faster. Tagamet HB, relief for full-strength heartburn.
I got a passion.
It beat Acura, BMW, and Infiniti.
I got a passion.
Mercedes and Lexus were both left behind.
I got a passion for the road.
Motor Trend named the Mazda Millennia #1 in its class. Mazda Millennia.
Passion for the road.
Leases start at $0 down, $349 a month, 24 months.
Mazda. Passion for the road.
Weather. Every day it moves and changes. There's something happening somewhere, and we bring you all of it in WeatherScope, the day's top weather stories, with live on-the-scene reports during major breaking events, up-to-the-minute forecasts for the nation and specific regions, and fascinating insight that lets you understand exactly what's happening and why. WeatherScope. It's all the weather you want. Every 30 minutes on the hour and half hour on the Weather Channel.
This seasonal solution is sponsored by Independent Insurance Agents of America.
Trouble here, too.
It means another stormy night in the east as severe weather targets areas from the deep south to New England. Straight line winds are blamed for scattered damage earlier today in Waynesburg, Pennsylvania. Waynesburg is about 50 miles south of Pittsburgh, and actually some winds blew the roof off an Econo Lodge this afternoon. Strong gusts also damaged the roof of a barn, a house, and a roller skating rink. There are also reports of a number of trees down, so you can see the damage here quite extensive through Waynesburg, Pennsylvania. Flooding has become a problem in western New York State, where water is covering some roads. This is near Dunkirk, New York, southwest of Buffalo on Lake Erie. The ground already is saturated, so it doesn't take much rain to trigger a flood. There also are reports of street and basement flooding in urban areas. Well, here's our front. Here's our area of low pressure, and this is where the rain and the severe weather has been today in the east. From New England south to the Gulf Coast, things really going along in this region. The wet weather, also some pretty windy conditions, too. Still the threat of some strong storms from the Carolinas northward to southern New England, and we still have some watches in effect. Severe thunderstorm watches extending from southern New England back to North Carolina. So some rough weather still could be potentially here with big storms moving through with a great deal of wind and also a great deal of rain. You can see the worst of it right now moving through eastern North Carolina on up to New England, where we see a great deal of rain with some embedded thunder showers moving through here. Into the northeast we go first, where eastern New York and over into New England around Concord and Burlington getting the wet weather here, and New York City getting some of the soggy conditions too. Look out in Providence and Boston a little later on. This activity will be headed your way. To the south, rain and also some snow. Pittsburgh reporting a rain-snow mix right now, but on the other side of the front where we still see the warm air in place, it's rain and thunder showers and a lot of windy conditions. Winds through this region gusting up to 40, 50, over 60 miles per hour in some cases, so packing quite a punch, and winds that strong could certainly do some damage. So winds really howling here. Back to the south through eastern North Carolina, moving east of Raleigh towards Cape Hatteras and Wilmington, rain and thunderstorms here. And the threat for flooding continues in the northeastern U.S.
Home to question her mother and other relatives after a powerful spring storm rolled through our area last night. In the early hours today, a homeowner in Mayfair had to call out a tree service company after a tree toppled on his house. So things were busy and a little noisy here in the 4100 block of Barnett Street as the tree was taken care of today, and the scene was repeated elsewhere throughout the day, like here on 53rd Street in Winfield. Some 14,000 Pico Energy customers lost power for a while from the fast-moving storm. It is a fascinating experiment in gardening in Trenton, New Jersey. What are they growing? Pollution-eating plants. Jersey correspondent Norma Shanik reports.
This lead-contaminated patch of land beside the old Magic Marker factory in Trenton doesn't seem like much of a place to garden, but soon the tainted plot will be full of Indian mustard plants like this. Amazing pollution-eating plants that naturally extract the lead from the ground and store it in their leaves.
Roots are there in soil continuously hunting for metals, because some of those metals happen to be nutrients.
It doesn't get into the flowers and it doesn't get into the seeds, but the leaves and the stalks of the plants accumulate these metals.
The process is called phytoremediation. The phytotech company of Monmouth Junction is developing the process with Rutgers University. It's also being tested using sunflowers to extract radiation from the soil and water near the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in the Ukraine. Once harvested, plants can be destroyed or sent to a smelter to recover the metals. This is considered the cutting edge in biotechnology, and if the experiments in Trenton and other places work, you could see these gardens growing all over the country.
We think about half the sites in the United States that contain metals can be cleaned using plants.
Which would be a lot cheaper. The conventional method for cleaning sites like this is to dig up the soil and cart it away at a cost of about $250,000 an acre. Letting plants do the job in the same area would cost between $30,000 and $50,000.
Shut down for quite some time. There's a big building not to have nothing going on.
If the experiment succeeds, the plant should reduce the lead levels enough to turn an abandoned piece of land no one wanted into a property that can be sold.
President Clinton today.
Man, we've got the cranberries, man. You must stay tuned, man, because salvation is coming, man.
The system